It's been a crazy couple of days, but we're back and we're here to talk a few things around the lawsuit between ACC and FSU. Let's talk through what could potentially happen. Buying back rights. Could they be held to the grant of rights deal? Can Florida State just say see you never and pay nothing? All of that we'll talk about here on today's show, Locked on ACC.
You are Locked on ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked on ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked on Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you download, subscribe to the pod from anywhere. We are talking all things legal today with a little bit of men's recap on hoops to sprinkle in, but it is very much a conversation around who is actually ultimately going to be right. Will it be the ACC or FSU? Will it be a heavy financial penalty for the Seminoles? Or will it be the ACC saying to themselves, yeah, pay up or be on your way? All the crazy things happen around here. It wouldn't surprise me if FSU gets off scot-free, but, you know, that's why we have these conversations. Kitten, how are you feeling?
I feel great. There are so many layers to this thing. It's like a terrible onion. It's like one of those white onions because those are the ones make you cry the hardest when you cut them up. And this is as the old saying goes, nobody wins when the family feuds. And this is one of those moments where I just feel like the longer this thing drags on and the more stories we hear about this way or that way, it makes me sad. Like my personal life is taking some positive developments. I'm not going to lie to you, right? And lots of things going right. But this situation is just, it's nasty.
It's definitely messy indeed. To give you up to speed for those who haven't been following along, FSU wants out of the conference. There is a grant of rights deal until 2036, which basically means that the ACC has locked in all of its members. And now you have FSU saying, not so fast. We were sort of bullied into this deal. We don't want to do it. We don't want to commit to it. So we're going to sue you. The ACC sued first. And now we're all trying to figure out how to be happy friends, not to be financially detrimental to said universities and programs, or ruin what is a really, quote unquote, used to be a powerful conference. So that's kind of where we're at now. Happening on February 16th, there was conversations around whether or not the Florida State Seminoles will be able to buy back their TV rights from the conference. So there have been talks about a 9-figure penalty and buying back. ACC contends that it has the grant of rights deal again through 2036. So the penalty could be around the $429 million mark. But some are saying maybe we can lessen that, have it lower, $100 million, whatever it could be. There might be some oil money, some Arab money, all the things that there's been alleged to happen. I don't know why you're making big eyes, but that's literally what it is. What?
Nothing at all. Go ahead. Proceed.
Okay. So there's been conversations around how to get FSU out of this bad boy, but it could be literally all for naught. And if a judge decides that the ACC sort of did put FSU in a bad financial position, could grant them free of charge, get out of jail free sign, and they walk away with nothing or walk away having to pay nothing. So that's sort of where we're at. But can please chime in on where you feel like this is going to land?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things going on in terms of a potential settlement. That's a potential buyout that's being agreed. Hey, we can get out of this thing as long as you're willing to buy your rights back. Which then begs the question: how much is the buyout going to be, right? Because if it's I've heard numbers as low as 90, as high as 400, and it's like, well, what does that even look like? Or obviously 400 is too much to write a check and just go on about your way. And so you look at that, but then you see sources like ESPN reporting that there are two parallel cases being tried in separate states. Florida State filed in Florida, the ACC filed in North Carolina. Those cases are running together, and it's just a very weird situation because let's just say they come out with opposite rulings. Who wins there? Who gets what? out of that type of deal? Do you go to the federal court with it? What happens here? And again, this is just a situation where everybody is going to end up, paying a lot, losing a lot. It just doesn't. This just doesn't feel like a good moment for anybody. But I will say this: if Florida State can come out of this without, to me, a win for Florida State is leaving and paying less than $250. I think you consider it a win for Florida State. $200, $250. They pay less than that range. I see this as a win. ACC, I think it's the exact opposite, right? You get anywhere from that that 250, 300 plus range up. That's the best solution here because it's clear. This is not like an amicable breakup. This ain't like a, hey, we're friends, things just didn't work out. Sometimes when two people love each other, love ain't enough. This is, I hate her, I hate him with a passion. I'm going to key his car when I see him. I'm going to cuss his mama out when I see her. I hate everything about you. I'll tell Miss Gladys stop liking my status on Facebook because I'm a blocker too. It's that type of deal.
100%. Do you think Florida State walks away with not having to pay anything?
No, that's not happening. That's not happening. Like, this is a bad deal. Don't get me wrong. And even going back to the Raycom deals, which I have talked about for quite some time, I said for quite some time that somebody getting their boy paid cost everybody in this thing. But very seriously, even if we go back to Swofford and those terrible Raycom deals, I don't think that they are bad enough to constitute outright, hey, I signed a contract, but I can escape the contract because they were so derelict in their duties. They were so negligent in choosing these options that it's very clear the damage that I'm doing just by existing in this space is worse than what would have happened even if we would have sat on our hands or done nothing otherwise. I don't think it rises to that level. So the likelihood of Florida State getting off completely scot-free, it's very, very slim. And the other part of that is it then kind of opens up a Pandora's box. And I'm not a lawyer, so don't give me the line about the legal part of this thing, but I would imagine that sets a precedence in that court that, hey, this is a viable option out of any contract now. If you can find whoever worked the contract, whoever was doing it, if you can find them derelict in their duties in terms of collecting the money to pay you or going about ways to pay you, you can get out of a contract scot-free. And then you get into the can of worms of, well, what is them putting on bad deals for me? Or what is them not acting in my best interest as a stakeholder in the nonprofit or in the whatever deal it is that you're in?
I guess my only question would be, again, Noles fans, don't jump me. Like, how bad off does Florida State seem to be financially in terms of competition? Like, the reason why you have not been successful athletically is because you haven't been able to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC, and it's been an arms race. You haven't been able to do all these things. Like, is it strictly that? Are your boosters not buying in and haven't put in enough in order to elevate your program? Like, what is the real financial holdback? Because it's not like the ACC you walk away with pennies every year, right? Like, you've been walking away with a substantial amount of millions, but I guess what is we're still just not in the space or it's not good enough type vibe?
Well, I mean, the objective truth is ACC's payout is $30 million, Big Ten, SEC, they're looking at 50 to 60. That's an objective truth. And America is the land of more. Let's just be honest, right? If you can get more, you're going to get more in this country. You're going to find a way to get more, get bigger, get better. Oh, they got a private jet. We need 3 private jets. Oh, they got 1 indoor facility. We need 2 indoor facilities. They got 2 indoor facilities. We need 3 indoor facilities and a lazy river in one of them. When college football teams start getting lazy rivers in their facilities, that's when I knew, like, all right, there's way too much money floating around. Cut it back. Cut it back. This is, what part of football is this? What part of the game is this? But, you're absolutely right in that it's not the money now holding Florida State back because the discrepancy isn't that big. And also, Florida State compared to their peers in the ACC, if the money were what determined winners and losers, Florida State would have never had a down period at all, even through the Taggart era, even through the start of the Norvell years up until last year, really the last 2 years just about. and you wouldn't lose to a team like an NC State or like a Carolina with all that type of money, flowing through there, because they've always been a preeminent brand in the ACC. They've always had an amazing alumni base. They've always had a lot of donations and all that good stuff. So the reality is the money is not what held this team back from performing in the past, but it's not just about now. One of the things that separate humans from most other animals, not only do we have opposable thumbs, we have pattern recognition and the ability to ingest the past and the future in a certain way that other animals can't. When we look ahead to the future, yes, it may not mean anything now. The $30 million gap may not mean much now because we haven't seen that play out over 5, 6, 7+ years. But when you're looking at a $300 million difference in funding between yourself and Florida, which is right down the street, the math starts to change a little.
Yeah, but I also think that, Florida sucks. So, like, as much money as they got, they're still not getting it done. So, I don't know. That's just me. But I guess that we can end this conversation and try and just figure out, where do we go from here? Do we genuinely think that this is
You are Locked On ACC.
Okay, music. Wanted to talk through our favorite friends at LinkedIn, because today's episode is brought to you by them. We all know that when you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find the quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn just isn't another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have the many qualified candidates. When you have that many quality candidates, so easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats that might not have the time or resource to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. Go to LinkedIn.com by posting your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Kenzie Gibbs and I here talking through the grant of rights deal, Florida State versus ACC, and what will come of it. At the end of the day, at least there's some sort of potential resolution. I know there's going to be a 9-figure penalty just because that seems to be the way of the world for what we kind of live in. I'm very interested at this point. Where are you finding it? That's all I want to know. Where are you finding it? And not to be like snarky, I'm like genuinely, where are you finding it? Where are you finding the money to leave? And then where are you going from here?
Well, there is, it's the kind of the same principle as whatever happened with SMU, just at a larger scale, right? SMU, they talked about, the old Texas money, the old oil money and all that good stuff. And we oftentimes don't know. Let's just be very honest about these things, right? Mm-hmm. We can all pretend, we can all speculate. You talked about oil money earlier in the episode. We can say, oh, there's some, there's some billionaire who graduated from Florida State who wants to help out, or there's some prince, foreign prince or something like that who wants to help out and all that good stuff. We don't know. We objectively don't know. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those moments that it feels like this will be a defining moment for not only the ACC, but college football at large, because there will be bigger ramifications than the ACC falling apart or coming together from this case. It's the old horseshoe, not the horseshoe theory, but it's the old story of the horseshoe that won the war, right? If the blacksmith didn't make the horseshoe, the horse couldn't ride. The horse couldn't ride, so the rider couldn't deliver the message. The message couldn't tell the army to fortify the East. They got attacked from the East. They lost the war. Without the horseshoe, they lose the war. This is one of those moments that feels like we're bigger than the horseshoe. To me, the original horseshoe was those terrible Raycom deals. That Swofford saying, hey, I got some folks that work over there. Let me stop slandering Swofford like that before they come to sue us. Allegedly, Swofford saying, hey, we're going to go over to Raycom despite some people having better deals to offer us, was the start of this thing. Again, that's what's being alleged by Florida State. That's not what Ken's coming up with. That's what Florida State's saying in their lawsuit. So with that being said, from that allegation, we're now at about the middle. We're now at about, hey, somebody needs to fortify the East because the Rockets' red glare is starting to flow here. We're starting to see FSU and ACC take chunks out of each other in court here. So, you talk about where does the money come from? And the answer from me personally, I don't know. I'm not on the inner workings of Florida State and their financials to understand where it's coming from. And honestly, there has been no clean reporting on a potential source of revenue to pay out anywhere from 150, 200 million, 400, 500, whatever that amount of millions is.
I'd be interested to see who follows suit after this Florida State thing sort of resides, right? Between North Carolina, Clemson, they've been the rumored ones to want to leave. Potentially in Miami, you could see it. I'd be very interested to see that. I'll also be very interested to see where do they land. Because once again, we've talked about how like SEC is not begging for nobody, right? Big Ten ain't necessarily begging for nobody. They're also meeting of the minds. They formed an alliance group about how to kind of work this out. And it really boils down to football, right? We're doing all of this for football. So be interested to see how we sort of get those, ducks in order and who sort of follows suit post that. But that's our conversation around the lawsuit. I'd give you an update. We know we have been having that throughout from the start of it to now. We'll probably be getting into it throughout the summer. So make sure you stay locked on that. But there is basketball happening, especially for the men, and a lot coming down to the wire about who is going to be in the top side of that ACC tournament and who was fighting for their life in order to get into the NCAA tournament. So Ken, if you will, indulge me in conversation around the men's hoops that happened on Saturday. North Carolina picking up a good win against Virginia Tech, who just beat Virginia here on Monday night, which, every day it's a team figuring themselves out. North Carolina trying their best, Jennifer. They really are trying their best to hang on in there, and they can do really well at home. It's going on the road. It's beating teams that they ought to beat. Great, check mark. It's beating the ones that could potentially dog walk them in the tournament. I don't know. It's still, the ACC doesn't run through them. I hope we can get past that point and just put our heads down and play.
I'll tell you what, Virginia Tech, Virginia, it's a rivalry game. Throw the record books out, right? Tony Bennett and all that he's done this season. And what I would say is probably a year where you looked at that team at points and you said, has Tony Bennett lost it? Is he not the guy anymore? Like, is he?
Did you see the score of the game or? Okay.
No, but this is what I'm saying. He then rebounded from that moment with one of the ACC's longest winning streaks against some quality opponents in there. Then you take a loss like this to Virginia Tech and it's like, you're kind of wondering what's going on there because Virginia Tech at multiple points this season has seemingly been floundering, right? If it hasn't been Padula or Couture, they've been able to produce precious little. And yet they figure it out. They get a win against their conference rival, their in-state rival, that right down the street in UVA. What a moment there. And then you talk about UNC. That's a team that whether people want to accept it or not, they are the flag bearers for the conference at the moment in terms of basketball. That's just Virginia.
Sure, you're talking about Virginia Tech and Virginia getting mollywopped by your rival 75-41 is pretty embarrassing, especially right now when recency bias will keep a team in or out of that NCAA tournament. 41 points. I ain't trying to see that. I'm not trying to see that. Ain't no lockdown defense when you let the other team score 75.
And that's also the criticism of Tony Bennett, even when everything is rolling well. Even when his teams are playing phenomenally, there's still the question of, why can't they fill it up? They're going to have those games, that moment where it's just like, we couldn't hit a Walmart from the parking lot. Like, that's just the reality of what we're looking at here. We couldn't hit a Walmart from the handicap spot in the parking lot. That's just how bad it is. But the reality is it's one game. It's a terrible loss. Getting blown out like that by your in-state rival, terrible loss. Don't get me wrong. In-state rival that's probably a quad 3 team right now, not a good loss. Not a good loss. With that being said, there is still a lot left on the table for UVA because they're a team that has shown in these past few games the ACC will likely be, even if Clemson struggles a bit down the stretch, which we'll get to them in a minute, there will still be a third team in here. This won't be a 2-bid lead. Not yet, as they say.
The fact that we're even talking about 2 or 3 is really sad. Let's talk about how Jared McCain is making a battle for his case to be ACC Rookie of the Year. But first, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live game same parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is the official partner of the NBA. So Kenton and I talking through some hoops and Jared McCain showing the Florida State Seminole fans just who might have been boss over the past weekend. Duke beating Florida State 76-67. I think it was a good win for the Blue Devils, a necessary win. Florida State being up and down, but like one of those tier teams that like they really can make a case for themselves, have been in a couple good games, probably needed that one to get over the hump of the confidence hump as they head into March Madness, but certainly a big win for the Blue Devils.
If Florida State had won that game, I feel like not only does the opinion about the ACC change, but they kind of get firmly in that bubble conversation, in my opinion. I really do think that with that win and a few more, they end up firmly in that conversation. But with that said, McCain said, I may be able to shake my hips on TikTok, but I'm going to shake a defender too now. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to show y'all that I'm more than a social media star. I'm a star on the court as well. Because I'll tell you, the young man plays beyond his years sometimes. In those big moments, we have seen lots of freshmen flounder. We've seen lots of underclassmen flounder in those moments. And yet he has had a moment or two where you're like, what was that? But I'll tell you, he shows up in big moments being a big-time player. And that's honestly what this Duke team has needed at many points in time because with all due respect, Filipowski has had moments where, in those big games, it's like, can he get it done? Is he the guy? I don't even want to talk about the rest because every time I talk about Jeremy Roach, Duke fans say I'm the meanest person in the world, and I just hate Jeremy Roach. I'm a Jeremy Roach hater, but, there are multiple players in there. Proctor is much in that same vein of, are you the guy that I can consistently count on to close? And the beauty of this Duke team, I think, is that there isn't just one guy. Right? There isn't just, it's last play going to McCain, regardless. Last play going to Proctor, regardless. Last play going to Roach, regardless. Last play going to Filipowski. There's multiple guys that can get it done based on the matchups they have, and I think that's what can potentially help this team do something special in March, if they are to do something special at that time.
1,000%. A team that certainly was doing well in March last year, but is not even close to who they know they can be, is that Miami team who lost to Boston College 85-77. Why I feel like the ACC tournament is going to be exciting because there's definitely some teams that know they're better than what their record shows and better than some of the losses that they've taken. But I think Boston College is one of those, scrappy teams that with Quentin Post can certainly make a name for themselves and go a lot further than people expect.
Yeah, this is, we talk about the ACC on the women's side. Anybody can beat anybody on any day and night and all that good stuff. Not much different on the men's side. Not much different on the men's side. But in this game in particular, this Miami team has been, I wouldn't say severely underwhelming because we knew with the loss of Isaiah Wong, you were going to be a different team. But there have been some moments where you're just like, this ain't just about execution. You start looking at Lord Nega a little bit like, what are we doing here? Why are we not getting the end-game adjustments that Miami needs to put themselves in a position to win some of these games against the Boston College,
Right.
Quentin Post is good. Yeah, he's not like, hey.
He's not a world beater, sure, but he's all right.
Exactly. But he's good. He's just not like, hey, we can't figure him out. There's nothing we can do with him.
So, of course, the Syracuse team that, beat North Carolina, got their top 10 win, fall short against the Georgia Tech team 65-60, because that's just how it goes, right? People play up when they're a really good team, and sometimes they want to beat you, and then they sort of have that hangover game, and this is, I think, one for Syracuse. But Georgia Tech team, who also beat North Carolina, is a pretty dang good program. They're just young as hell.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, anytime anytime refs decide to let players get physical with Judah Mintz, that boy is gonna struggle. That he is going, because I'm gonna tell you, he lives at that line. His residence, they told him, we need your new address if you're moving out of our apartments. He said the free throw line, please. Just forward all my mail that comes here to the free throw line, because you can find me there posted on the block nonstop. That's where I'm gonna be. But with that being said, again, this is, like you said, that Georgia Tech team, young, scrappy, upstart team. This Syracuse team, they performed fairly well for this to be their first year in the post-Boeheim era. Yeah. And so, they've gone through some things, but all in all, I don't think that they're playing much worse than many people expected. However, the host of Locked On Syracuse, Jackson, did give me a very interesting stat about Syracuse. Mm-hmm. If they are to miss the tournament this year, it will be the first ever graduating class from Syracuse to not see Syracuse play in the NCAA tournament since the 70s, I believe.
Wow.
So
that'll be tough. I hate to see it, but it's probably gonna happen. So get your mind right. Let's talk about Pitt and Louisville. One job, you got to beat Louisville. It sucks because there is probably going to be one who gets dog smacked by them. Who knows when it's going to happen, but they're going to have that one glory win, I feel like, before the end of the season. Pitt definitely didn't let them get that, the 86-59 victory. The Pitt looking like a pretty solid NCAA program team. It's just they definitely have some losses that I know right now as they're trying to build that resume they want back.
Pitt's in that space where, you got to win the tournament. You got to win the tournament. There's no, there's really not much of a hope for you otherwise. But here's the crazy part. Pitt has shown they can beat the best.
Very much so.
Pitt has shown. Henson has shown. That brother is prime time television in college basketball. You do not want to look away. You do not want to turn away. When he's got the ball in his hands, something special is liable to happen any moment. So with that being said, this Pitt team is one that you've got to keep your eye on, because then you start asking yourself, well, hypothetically, we know that they haven't had the season that they wanted to have. We know that Capel wouldn't want his year, 4 to go like this. He's been there for a while, got his guys in. But with that being said, how many games in the ACC tournament would they need to win to secure themselves a tournament bid is the question. That's a very valuable question as well. So just something to think about there.
100% agree. Last team to talk about over the weekend that had a good one, NC State and Clemson team that, man, when you need to pull out some, this would be the one. You just can't afford to get beat by an NC State program that too has had an up and down sort of year. But, them's be the breaks, I suppose. But, yeah, Clemson definitely on that bubble trying to get to that NCAA tournament.
Everybody in Wolfpack Nation constantly talks about Coach Keese not having a quad 1 win. He said, Here, take this. Get out of my face. Don't ask me for nothing else. Don't ask me for Nathaniels. Don't ask. Don't ask. Because I'm going to ask you, do you got quad 1 win money at home? That's going to be your answer. But in all fairness, this is a Clemson team that was supposed to be the third ACC team in the tournament. And now they're seeming to kind of fizzle out down the stretch at points. And it's with the way that people talk about the ACC now, it's so unfortunate that any loss is almost like a knockout game for some of these teams because the teams that they're playing are not getting the respect. NC State's not getting national respect. They're not. That's it. Do they deserve national respect? I'd argue no. But they're not getting respect as a team that's like, a loss to NC State ain't the worst thing in the world. So, this is the situation where if these teams that are on the bubble continue to lose, continue to look bad, I'm looking at you, UVA, I'm looking at you, Clemson, we may turn into a two-big conference.
1,000% agree. All right, final thing here. Tuesday night, we'll see some action. Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Florida State, Pitt, and Wake Forest. Those will be some really good games. Make sure you'll check them out. We will recap them for you as we prepare for the week and give you, of course, any updates that we have around the bend. We know that is spring ball on the way, so we don't want to leave that out of conversations, but we hope that you stay locked in with us. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, until next time.